Hi, everybody, and welcome to Get Real with Danna and Ginny today on our Facebook Live. Sorry for the technical delays and issues. Sometimes you just can't help it. I'm in North Carolina and there's lots of rain. So anyway, let's get going. We are here today with Katherine Watkins. I'm Danna Bowman.
And I'm Ginny Mahar, and we are so excited to be here with all of you for another episode of Get Real with Danna and Ginny. Real talk from real thyroid patients about living the thyroid healthy lifestyle. And we're so excited to be here with Katherine today, who is a functional diagnostic nutritionist and anti-aging expert. She has so much incredible knowledge that we adore having her on our Thyroid Refresh Advisory team. And she's here today with us to talk about probiotics. We know this is a source of lots of confusion for lots of people in our community because there's so much to choose from. Where do we begin with probiotics? How do we choose the right one for us? So that's what we're going to be talking with Katherine about today. So welcome, Katherine.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Before we dive in, we do want to make a quick announcement that Thyroid 30 is currently open for enrollment for our summer session. We're getting into the tail end of enrollment, guys. We only have like 48 hours left.
Wow.
So that window is closing. Yeah, this is a shorter enrollment this time. And if you're interested in playing with us, we'd love to have you along. If you want to learn more about Thyroid 30, our 30-day wellness adventure that is designed to empower thyroid patients to implement thyroid healthy living practices, diet and lifestyle changes, whatever it is that you need to help you reach your goals, regardless of where you're at on the healing path. So it's an incredible program. And if you want to learn more, you can go to thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30 and sign up. So We'd love to see you there. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about probiotics. Where do we even begin? I mean, kind of the theme that we listed for this Facebook Live was how do we choose a probiotic that's right for us? So, Katherine, what do you think about, where's a good place to even begin? There's so many to choose from. We all have different needs and things like that. As a diagnostician and an expert, do you just jump into probiotics with people? It sounds like you have more of your approach starts with other things first. Why don't we start maybe by talking a little bit about that and just sort of laying that groundwork that, like anything, there's not just pills you can throw at this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously, the gut microbiome is the source of our health. We all know how important it is, and getting it, a healthy and balanced gut flora is probably, arguably the most important thing we can do for our health. But just going in there and thinking you can take a few probiotic supplements and suddenly going to cure everything, that's definitely not the way I would approach things. The first thing I would do is always just look and see what you're doing currently that's actually kind of destroying your gut bacteria. And I've made a little list here of some of the main things to look out for. So we've got prescription antibiotics. Obviously, sometimes we have to take those, but overusing those can be very destructive for the bacteria. Sugar, GMO, obviously gluten and dairy, we know all about that as thyroid patients. Emotional stress is such a huge one. If we're not managing our stress, our gut bacteria are going to be all over the place. And then we've got obviously things like alcohol and smoking. And another really, really important one is, our circadian rhythms, our sleep as well. So once we've got all that done, then we really need to focus on eating, an anti-inflammatory diet. And I know you girls have done an amazing job of showing people, what kind of things to eat. And I think mainly cutting out the really big players like gluten, dairy, sugar make a massive, massive difference. And once we've done all those things, let's look at, and this is your area, Ginny, the chef, but really introducing some probiotic foods into the diet. So let's look at things like sauerkraut. Let's look at things like kimchi, kefir, kombucha. I've even saw a recipe for an amazing homemade ginger ale. So these are all things that, you can bring into your diet. Now, if you're struggling with gut issues, and even if you're not, this would be a good time to introduce the probiotics. So you're already doing all of the foundational things. Bone broth, I should add as well, is a very important thing to have in there for the gut healing. So once you're doing all these things, you want to start thinking, now, do I want to introduce a type of probiotic that's for a specific thing that I have, or do I want a general probiotic that's going to help my health generally? And so this is, if a client is suffering from a particular gut issue, it can be worth maybe doing a comprehensive stools diagnosis. And that's going to tell you if you've got any particular infections or anything showing up. And then you can actually choose a probiotic strain that's exactly right for you. And we'll talk about that a bit later. And the other thing you can do is take a great multi-strain. And the main strains are the lactobacillus and the bifidus strains. And these are definitely the most researched. There's the most research in terms of thyroid stuff as well. And definitely Hashimoto's patients can benefit from some of these. So in terms of what to look for when choosing a good probiotic, the first thing that you really want to check for is whether you've got enough strains in there. Okay, so just to put things in perspective, a lot of the probiotics that you buy at the store, they may say have like 10 billion strains, but put in the context of your gut, which has, some people say, 1 trillion gut bacteria in there, you can see how, these store-bought probiotics and even like, yogurt, that's not really going to make much of a dent at all on that. So I like to start people on somewhere between 15 billion and they go all the way out to like 450 billion. I mean, they go up to huge.
Holy cow.
Huge amounts. You do need to be careful, of course, when taking a probiotic, that you do start very slowly and work your way up. You are altering the terrain of your gut microbiome. So you don't want to go in there full whack and just throw all these things and your gut will just go absolutely crazy. So to choose a probiotic with a high number of strains, but start low and work up. That would be my first thing. Choose a really reputable brand. So the easy thing to do is just get a brand that's really, endorsed by, sold by, recommended by practitioners, functional health practitioners, naturopaths, things that they use in their practice. These are brands that are going to adhere to very rigid clinical standards. They're going to make sure that they've been stored properly, refrigerated properly, transported properly. They're going to have a high enough strains that's been shown to make a difference. And so if you're a little bit unsure, I would definitely choose one of those brands.
That's such helpful information. I know with the dosage, well, and also even the strains and different products that have the same strains, it seems like there is a lot of variability. Now, my naturopath recommended switching brands and products, so you don't end up with this like monoculture. So I'm always like trying new things, right? And some of them, I'm like, I don't even notice that I'm taking this. Some of them I feel like, there's less bloating, I notice some positive stuff, but sometimes it's like, wow, I'm really bloated. I'm having some gurglies. It's just too much. So I think, it's a lot always about finding what works for you, right?
Definitely. You bring up a really interesting point there, Ginny, about the bloating. So we often see when clients introduce probiotics, and even before they introduce the products, that they are suffering from bloating. Okay. And this is more often the case when you're introducing one of the multi-strain products, especially if you suffer from something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And over 50% of thyroid patients actually have this. So this is a real issue.
Wow. We're hearing more and more about SIBO.
We are.
And going back to things like emotional stress and diet, these things are all, if you have SIBO, you really need to pay attention to these things. But in terms of the actual probiotics, you may not do as well with one of these, high multi-strain products. You need to find something that's maybe working for you. But the good news is that there are certain strains of probiotics, for example, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a yeast-based probiotic. This one works very well with SIBO, also works really well with other conditions which have been said to trigger autoimmune thyroiditis, for example, so Candida pylori, Blastocystis hominis, which is a very tricky parasite to get rid of. S. boulardii helps all of those things, so that's a great thing. And to be honest, for me, that's something which I include as a staple with all my recommendations for clients. Like that for me is one probiotic which I think is good for everybody. Another huge benefit that it has is it increases the secretory IgA in the gut. So basically your gut's immune system. So it boosts that, which is obviously very, very powerful. The other great thing about Espulade is you can take it with antibiotics as well. So it helps to repair the flora after antibiotics as well. So that's definitely one of my favorites that you can take with SIBO. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the spore-based.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you like the spore-based?
I'm a huge fan of spore-based probiotics. I'm a huge fan of the company Microbiome Labs. They make a range of excellent gut repair products generally. And I've been using quite a few of their products for quite some time with clients, and we've seen some really, really remarkable, life-changing results with them. So I've seen Megaspore reverse many cases of SIBO, just in and of itself, not everyone, but some people. Another amazing thing it seems to be able to do is really fix up histamine issues. So I know a lot of us thyroid girls also have histamine issues as well, and Megaspore is amazing for that. I have one client and friend who has been in pain his entire life with ankylosing spondylitis, which is a autoimmune disease which affects the neurology in the spine. And he'd been in like agony for his entire life. Within 2 days of taking high dose Bacillus subtilis, which is one of the types of probiotic in the Megaspore. And they actually do, so if you can see this, HU58. So this is the same company that make Megaspore, but this is just a particularly high strain of that Bacillus subtilis.
That specific bacteria.
Yeah. So within 48 hours of taking that, his pain spontaneously resolved, and he hasn't had it back apart from 2 days where he forgot to take the probiotic.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, so absolutely amazing. It totally modulated his immune system and got rid of his pain. So that's, just to show you how powerful these probiotics can be. And the other great thing about these little babies is that they're shelf stable. They are really, really tough. You don't need to refrigerate them. They even survive stomach acid, which is incredible. And so these are really, really great probiotics when it comes to really trying to reestablish and retexturize the microbiome of your gut.
We have a question sorry, I was just going to jump in and just say, we have a question from Devania. She's asking, would Saccharomyces boulardii be harmful for someone with Candida? And I was thinking it might be helpful for someone with Candida, right?
So even though it's a yeast-based organism, it's a beneficial yeast. And it's in fact one of the, it is the first line of defense I use with clients with Candida. So just a little aside, 2 things which I often give clients with Candida is berberine, which is an amazing antimicrobial, but even without the berberine, just giving high dose Saccharomyces boulardii can be very, very effective at keeping on top of yeast infections.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's a really common one. There's so many of these things that are coming up. These are very common root cause factors that people have with their Hashimoto's, Graves', thyroid imbalance, any kind of autoimmune imbalance can be related to things like SIBO, Candida.
Absolutely.
These.
Gut infections are one of the main triggers. I personally believe my triggers were a combination of stress and yeast overgrowth. So I really went after the Candida, and one of the things I used was high dose Saccharomyces boulardii. And the other thing which everybody should know, you should always keep this probiotic at home in case you have any kind of diarrhea, because high dose Espulade will stop diarrhea in its tracks.
Interesting.
And again, berberine. So
berberine
and berberine is a really potent combination when it comes to diarrhea.
Carrie has a question, and she says, what about with celiac? I guess she's wondering, how that affects taking probiotics with celiac disease.
Okay, well, again, it really all comes down to you and your personal reactions. I would be, I really like the spore-based probiotics for immune issues. And I would start probably with something like Megaspore, and I would start really, really low. So with Megaspore, the dose, I believe, the starting dose is half a cap, and you take that 30 minutes after meals, and you build up to a maximum of 2 per day. But, I definitely, if you've got something like celiac or a more serious gut condition, I would really obviously get testing done. I would find out whether there are any infections in there, and I would get probiotic strains that are particularly suited to your infection. And it's very easy to just jump online, and there's plenty of information which will tell you which strains are good for which conditions that you have, which infections.
So you can get a comprehensive stool analysis or GI mapping, and then for SIBO, is it a breath test?
SIBO, it has a breath test. There are 2 different breath tests. SIBO is often able to diagnose it just by symptoms.
Okay.
You know? So someone who has SIBO is going to have a very high intolerance to certain kinds of carbohydrates, starchy carbohydrates, and actually it can be quite problematic because a lot of these are prebiotics. So prebiotics are fibers that feed the healthy bacteria in your gut. But if, as in SIBO, the bacteria has left the large intestine where it's supposed to be, it's come up to the small intestine where it's not supposed to be. So if we start feeding it these prebiotics, all this fermentation starts to happen, and we start getting all these really nasty digestive, especially bloating. If you have a lot of bloating, you really might want to check for SIBO and stay away from prebiotics, and they're called FODMAP foods until you can sort that out. But as I said, probiotics like Megaspore and Espuladi, they're really good to have with SIBO as well.
Awesome. Katherine, this is fascinating. Thank you so much. I know this is incredibly helpful information for everybody listening. You mentioned shelf stability, and I remember, Danna, when she was doing Thyroid Nation Radio, had, is it Kiran Krishnan on from Thrive Probiotics? They're another spore-based probiotic. Them and Megaspore, that's kind of who I hear about most as far as a spore-based. But he made this point that the spore-based probiotics are tougher and more shelf stable. And he's like, look, if your probiotic has to be refrigerated, how's it going to survive the human digestive tract?
Yeah, and it's a very, very good point. There is, having said that, Kiran, he's a friend and he's an amazing guy, but there is lots of research that, the lacto and bifido strains can make a really big difference. For example, for women, like we suffer a lot from things like urinary tract infections. So L. rhamnosus and L. reuteri are 2 strains which are amazing for helping with that. So we know that. But yes, generally, I totally agree with him. With the other types of probiotic, it's so difficult to ensure that the number of strains that it says that it has have actually survived the whole process, from production to storage to shipping to transport to the retailer and then into your fridge. So it's so hard. But the spore ones are amazing because, they're so tough. They survive heat, they survive moisture, they survive your digestive tract. And so they're really, they're a really, really amazing choice. I really love to use a combination of all of them with clients. So I will use an Espuladi. I will use a bacillus-based, spore-based strain as well. And then I'll probably rotate that with a lacto-bifido strain just to give a really complete... and another doctor who has amazing work on the gut, who I follow, is Michael Ruscio. So I don't know whether you've had him on the show at all, but he's really amazing, and he's formulated this gut repair protocol. He has an amazing book as well called Healthy Gut, Healthy You, which I definitely recommend that you all read. And that talks about all the different probiotics and how to use them in combination and when to bring them in if you're doing a gut repair. It's a really, really valuable resource for, thyroid patients.
We're actually going to be on his podcast, I think, sometime in September. And then he's going to be on ours, after that or whatever. So we'll be sure
to. He has some of the most user-friendly information. It's a simple step. This is what you do. You cut out these foods, and then you have this probiotic. You can do it for this long, and then you have this one, and then you have these antimicrobials. And it's a really good... if you don't have the time or the money to go to a functional medicine doctor and you want to just go through a general gut repair program, including all these probiotics, this is a really great resource. Healthy Gut, Healthy You.
Okay. Healthy Gut, Healthy You. Love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's the name. Having said that twice.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We're here talking with Katherine Watkins about probiotics. And really quickly, just another announcement that we are currently open for Thyroid 30 enrollment. Gut health is part of our 8 daily rituals when we play Thyroid 30. And it's just, did you do something today to support your gut health? There's so many different things that you can do to do that. Probiotics is one of those things. But whatever your goals are, Thyroid 30 can help you reach those goals. And we're actually at the tail end of enrollment. So if you'd like to sign up, you want to go soon to thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30 to enroll. We would love to have you join us.
Yeah, we only have 2 days left. So if you want to get in on this summer game and have some effective healing together, join us.
Yeah. And we also have an amazing article coming out from you, Katherine, about all of this. So our members will be able to, and our Thyroid 30 players will be able to access that information via thyroidrefresh.com.
Yeah.
One other question that has come up from some of our players is, should we be taking probiotics all the time? What's your opinion on that? I know it kind of depends on the practitioner, right? But what's your opinion on that?
My opinion is it totally depends on you. I definitely don't think it's going to hurt, particularly if you are rotating them. I think that's really, really important. And if you're not getting any adverse reactions from them. But as I said earlier, it's useless to take a probiotic if you're not doing all the foundational work. And some people, you can just focus on the fermented foods and the prebiotic foods. You might not necessarily need a probiotic. Personally, I do take a probiotic, and I don't take it daily because sometimes I forget, but generally I take it daily, and I use a mix between, as I say, a spore. Right, currently I'm out of Megaspore, so I'm using my HU58. I take Espulide as well. And then sometimes I'll take something like Claire Thyroid, which is more of a traditional lacto-bifido mix, but I'll mix them up all the time. Diversity is the spice.
And when you say rotate, mix them up, is that just for our listeners? Is it every day you try something different, or for a week or a month? Just to explain.
The way that I do it, I go through one pack, done, next pack.
Okay.
Yeah. Different product, finish that out.
It doesn't hurt to do it more often than that, but I don't think it's really 100% necessary.
Okay. Good to know.
Great. Good to know. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that you emphasize that, if you're just taking probiotics and you're not addressing factors like stress and lifestyle and mindset and, even healing old emotional traumas and things, that, the body is this brilliant interconnected web, and we can't compartmentalize too much if we really want to be wholly, fully healthy, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you mentioned that, as you have to have that foundation, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, your body needs to have a really good balance between the sympathetic stress response, which is our fight or flight, and our parasympathetic, which is our recovery, our rest and digest. And that ultimately has to be the foundation which all of this comes under. Because if you're too sympathetic, dominant and stressed, it doesn't matter what else you do with your supplement. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You need to work on your stress response. You need to work on your circadian rhythms, emotional, as you say, trauma. Working on all that stuff is really, really powerful as well. So
yeah, I just watched that documentary, Heal.
You did? Wow.
Yes, that's a really powerful documentary for anybody who's curious about it. But yeah, the power of the mind and the emotional piece and the stress piece. And it's hard to sometimes realize how we're showing up in ways that don't serve us, how old wounds that we're not even consciously aware of can throw our systems out of homeostasis. And
circadian rhythm is so big too, because you just don't realize, but really we were made to be awake when the sun's out and made to be asleep when, when the sun goes down. Now, all those people living up in, Alaska or wherever, I don't really know about those people, but I'm just saying most everybody really, you're supposed to kind of follow the natural rhythms with the light and things. And so, I know for me, I used to have a problem with that. As a kid. And I think some of that had to do with television, but it really is so important. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, listening to your body and being, smart and listening to your body.
Yeah. You mentioned bone broth. I know we're talking about probiotics, but there are other things that we can do, right, to support our gut health. Can you talk a little bit about, bone broth or some of those other things that we can do?
Yeah, like bone broth is a great adjunct to any diet. Like we eat a lot of muscle meats, but we don't eat much of the connective tissue and the cartilage and all the stuff and the collagen that comes along with that. Bone broth is a great way to get that. You can also take a collagen supplement as well if you like. The benefits, it's got L-glutamine, which is an important amino acid for healing the gut lining. It's also full of collagen, so it's great for your skin. And also it's got glycine in, which is very calming. So it can really help you if you have any kind of anxiety or you have problems getting to sleep. It can be really great for that as well. And, you know, talking of breakthrough products that are really, really great for supporting the gut, and which I now include with every single client across the board, are high dose immunoglobulins. So you can also buy these from Kieran's company, Microbiome Labs. And they've got two products there, which I really like. One is called IgG 2000, and this is just the immunoglobulin. So basically, this is like colostrum, mother's milk, and it's all the immune factors taken out of there, extracted, and you can take them, you know, there's no lactose, there's nothing in there which can, you know, so if you're dairy free, it's still fine to take them. And then there's another product called Mega Mucosa, which is fewer immunoglobulins, but it's also got a bunch of added amino acids. So depending on what your issues are, personally for me, I really like the Mega Mucosa. I feel like a bigger difference with that one, but it's different for everyone. So that is something that I include as part of an everyday gut support, you know, protocol.
Are you familiar with that? I think it's a soil-based product called Restore.
Yes.
That liquid. Yeah, I've taken that before.
How did you go with that?
I mean, I took it religiously. I was doing a, you know, targeted healing reset and took it religiously, I think for 30 days. And I mean, I don't know. I didn't notice any negative side effects.
It's an interesting product. On paper, I'm wowed by it. I think it's absolutely amazing. Zach Bush, who created it, is like one of my, I love him. I think everything he does, he's absolutely amazing. He's a genius, and the product is amazing. It's a really great trace mineral supplement. Really, it's kind of almost like an electrolyte type supplement, and it does help reform your gut bacteria. It's an interesting one. So among my chronically sick client population, so I work with a lot of clients who are very, very sick with, you know, mold and Lyme and, you know, in huge amounts of pain, and they're very, very sensitive. You know, some of them can really take almost no supplements at all. But I've seen some very, very strong negative reactions to Restore, but I've also seen some very, very strong positive reactions. So I kind of feel like the sicker you are, the more likely you are to have a strong reaction one way or the other. But as you say, like personally, when I've taken it, I can't really tell. Theoretically, I think it should be doing me wonders, but you don't really know. But certainly, you know, Zach Bush's work is amazing. Recently, I did his, it's kind of like an emergency hydration protocol. Most of us are chronically dehydrated. But because the human body can't actually absorb any more than 100 mils, which I think is about 3 ounces, is that right, of water in one go, you actually need to have like a small glass of water every half an hour from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Do this for 3 days to actually get your hydration back on track. As well as adding some electrolytes. And of course, hydration is really important for your gut bacteria as well. So yeah, big fan of that. Amazing.
Yeah, just curious about that. You mentioned, going back to the bone broth, you mentioned the connective tissue, and I'm sure it's probably similar in the UK. Here in the US, we love our little shrink wrap styrofoam packages of the boneless, skinless chicken breast, right? Get rid of all the fat, get rid of the bones, get rid of the connective tissue. And I just wanted to drop this in as a chef. It's unfortunate when we look at ancient food, you know, ancient food cultures, almost across the board, they're incorporating the connective tissue, the tendon, the tripe, all those things, the cartilage that give us the collagen and elastin and the gut nourishing substances, the things that make our skin and hair and bones look and feel good. And, that's a lot of what's in bone broth. I remember living in San Francisco, and we lived off Clement Street, which is kind of like almost like an adjunct to Chinatown. And they would have the Chinese delis and stuff with the Peking ducks hanging in the windows and the chicken feet. And I asked one of my culinary school classmates who grew up in Beijing, her name was Annie. She was like, "Oh, chicken feet are so good. You have to try them." Because I was talking about how I was trying to work up the courage to try chicken feet. And I said, I don't know. Like, why do you eat it? There's not like meat on them. And she said, it's all the connective tissue and the cartilage, and they're just full of that. And I remember she rubbed her elbow. She said, it's good for this. It makes your joints feel good. That's why we eat it as Chinese people, is we get that nourishment from it. And I just, want to spread that idea to people that like bones, cartilage, skin, tendons, things like that, they give back to the meat what cooking takes out. So we're getting more nourishment from it with our bodies. We're also getting more mouthfeel, more juiciness, more flavor. So, I encourage people to maybe think about switching out that boneless, skinless chicken breast for like roast a whole chicken. Roast a whole chicken. You can get 3 meals out of that. You get all this gut nourishing stuff. You can take the bones, put them in a pot, turn it into bone broth. You know what I mean? It's whole foods nutrition, right?
And we need to remember that the connective tissue is something which has really been ignored as part of our health. It's always we're focusing on the cell or we're focusing on the gut. But connective tissue is extremely important, and something that we are seeing with a lot of these chronically ill clients is they are starting to lose the integrity of their connective tissue. We see extreme hypermobility in the joints. What we're starting to learn now is that the connective tissue is actually the first point of the immune system. And when we have our connective tissue is breaking down, that's put the whole body into something known as the cell danger response, and that can start a chronic disease process. And so maintaining the integrity of the connective tissue is of vital importance. And many of our listeners may resonate with this, especially ones with autoimmune disease. If you notice or you have a history of hypermobility or joint laxity, this is definitely something that you might want to look into that might really help restore your health if you focus on your connective tissue.
That's amazing. We just talked to someone about this, I think the day before yesterday, Katherine, that someone who specializes in, physiology for thyroid and autoimmune patients. And she said, we see this all the time. Hypermobility and connective tissue issues. Yeah. So maybe we'll have to do another Facebook Live about that.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very interesting topic. There's a subset of people who have something known as EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's really at the moment it's kind of like it's an official diagnosis, but it's based on there's so many different types, but the underlying kind of theme which links them all, everyone has this connective tissue thing. But what's so interesting is along with that comes this whole host of other health issues. It's not just the connective tissue. That's just the start of it. And so I think in the next few years we're going to hear a lot more about this.
Unfortunately, right?
Well, we always learn so much from you, Katherine.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for being here with us. Everybody, this is Katherine Watkins, our Thyroid Refresh resident transformational health coach. She's a functional diagnostic nutritionist and just has such a wealth and breadth of knowledge and wisdom to share with us. So thank you for sharing some of that with us today and exploring the juicy topic of probiotics.
And she's an anti-aging expert, and look at her. Doesn't she look stunning, right? I'm like, I want to study with the anti-aging expert like you.
Yeah. How do we look like that?
Right?
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Also, don't forget, guys, Thyroid Refresh, Thyroid 30 is now open on thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30 if you want to join and play for this summer wellness adventure. You only have a couple days left, so we'd love to have you inside the game. So be sure to check it out.
Yeah. Sign up, everybody. It's amazing.
Yeah.
tons of fun, very effective. We have some great testimonial videos too, and that is just so refreshing and just rewarding. Jenny and I, both of us, we've got these people who are saying these amazing things that have played the game, and they're back playing the game. I saw them sign up. Most of all of them are back playing again. So
Yeah,
it's pretty wonderful.
Seen a lot of my past teammates back to join us again, and they were the inspiration for this Facebook Live, because we listen to our players and they're asking, what about probiotics? Where do I begin? Does this work? Does that work? What do I need? How do I pick one? There's a bazillion products out there to choose from. So I know you've answered a lot of those questions for people. So thank you again, Katherine. And thank you all for joining us and watching today. Another episode of Get Real with Danna and Ginny. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.